Standard & Poor's raises Vietnam's national credit rating after 9 years. And Vietnam's agriculture development with support from International Fund. Hello there, welcome to another episode of BizLine, giving you the best biz picks of the week. I'm Dai Chung from Hanoi. We're going to start things off by taking a look back on the most notable economic highlights over the past days. International credit rating agency Standard & Poor's (S&P) recently lifted Vietnam's national credit rating from BB- to BB with stable prospects. The credit agency also rated Vietnam's short-term credit at level B. This is the first time after 9 years that S&P raised Vietnam's credit rating. The Vietnamese economy is expected to grow rapidly with fast improvements in policymaking and planning. The Standard & Poor's also said the Vietnamese economy has a diversified structure with strong growth in the FDI sector and in manufacturing and processing for exports. The Asian Development Bank, or ADB, forecasted Vietnam's economic growth as moderate, but remaining strong in the next 2 years, despite a projected slowdown in the global economy and world trade. In its flagship annual economic publication, Asian Development Outlook 2019, the ADB forecasts Vietnam's economy to grow by 6.8% in 2019 and 6.7% in 2020. Growth will continue to be broad-based, underpinned by robust private consumption, the continued expansion of manufacturing, services and agriculture, and greater market access for Vietnam's exports through various free trade agreements, including the recently ratified CPTPP. On Wednesday, the Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers, or VASEP, said that the United States Department of Commerce announced a new dumping tax for shrimp exported from Vietnam. It's gone down to 0% from Sao Tao Company and Nha Trang Company, along with 29 other companies. This is the lowest the tax rate has been in the last 2 years and is helping businesses become more competitive in the U.S. market. Vietnamese non-alloy steel bars and rods have just been removed from the list of official safeguard measures by the Canadian International Trade Tribunal. According to the Trade Remedies Authority of Vietnam, this is because Vietnam is on the list of countries with preferential tariff rates and Vietnam's export volume is negligible. Last October, the Ministry of Finance of Canada announced the application of a temporary safeguard in the form of additional 25% import duty on all 7 groups of steel products. Vietnam is subject to safeguard measures for 2 kinds of products. The regulations on personal unsecured lending by consumer finance companies will be tightened if a draft circular of the State Bank of Vietnam, or SBV, takes effect. Under the draft circular amend the circular number 43, stipulating consumer lending by financial companies, the central bank proposes to limit unsecured personal loans, known in Vietnam as cash loans, to existing consumers with good credit history according to the internal regulations of the financial company and no overdue debt, according to the classification of the State Bank of Vietnam's National Credit Information Center at the time of signing the consumer loan contract. Now, financial companies must limit the maximum amount of cash loans to 30% of their total consumer loans. According to experts, the industrial real estate market, including industrial land, ready-built factories, warehouse and logistics in Vietnam, is facing opportunities for explosive growth. The sector is very attractive for foreign investors during the trend of international investment flows. Vietnam's new policies on industrial real estate, such as industrial restructuring strategies, new legal framework for industrial zone management and economic zones, and industrial clusters are very convenient for businesses and for investors. It is forecast that by 2020, Vietnam will have about 500 industrial parks with an area of about 500,000 hectares. And that's it for the economic highlights of the week. Up next in our crosstalk, we will take a look at the development of Vietnam's agriculture scene during the past 20 years' support of the International Fund for Agriculture Development, or IFAD. For the past 25 years, IFAD, or the International Fund for Agricultural Development, has assisted Vietnam in agricultural and rural development, aiming at hunger eradication and sustainable poverty reduction. The IFAD-supported program has covered 11 of the poorest provinces and financed 15 programs and projects, with total investment of more than $550 million. In recent years, IFAD focused on improving access to markets, promoting private sector growth, and delivering services for market-oriented poverty reduction, among others. And in this edition of BizLine, we will delve into the programs of IFAD and their impact on farming households in Vietnam. But first, let's watch the following clip.
Though 70% of the population of Vietnam work in the agriculture sector, they contribute only 20% of GDP, while in developed countries, about 4% of the population working in agriculture contribute 40% of GDP. In order to improve the productivity and capacity of farmers in Vietnam, many programs have been launched by IFAD over the past 25 years. Among the most notable strategies of IFAD in Vietnam are Pro-Poor Public-Private Partnership, or 4Ps, which motivates the private sector to engage with rural or smallholder producers, MOP-SADP methodology, which facilitates more active participation of local communities in setting development priorities based on market demands, PPP matching grants or PPP fund to attract investments from agribusiness into potential value chains, and funding for rural infrastructure consolidation. Thanks to this assistance and the efforts of farmers themselves, so far 30,578 farm households benefited from better input and output of supplies, and nearly 4,800 new jobs were generated during the investment in agricultural value chain.
And we have invited to our studio today Mr. Thomas Rath, the Country Director in Vietnam of the International Fund for Agriculture Development, or IFAD. So thank you very much for joining us today. So IFAD has entered Vietnam 25 years ago and has witnessed the impressive economic growth of the country. So what do you assess the role of agriculture sector in that process?
The role of agriculture in Vietnam has been enormous. And I give you one number. Before Doi Moi, 1988, the share of agriculture in the overall GDP was about 50%. Today, it's about 15%. But the total amount increased from $5 billion to over 35 billion US dollars. So you see, agriculture has been a powerhouse, and as a representative of the UN agency IFAD, the International Fund for Agriculture Development, I'm extremely proud that IFAD was partnering, had a strong partnership with the government of Vietnam and the local people and the local governments in boosting the economy, in helping improving rural livelihoods, and helping boosting the local economy and quality of life of Vietnamese.
So along that process, what do you recognize as the competitive advantage of the Vietnamese agriculture sector, and what are the weaknesses?
I think the big advantage of the agriculture sector in Vietnam is its productivity. The local partners, the national government has facilitated the local partners to attract technologies, farm inputs to farmers, like fertilizers, agriculture sprays to prevent crop diseases, improving the productivity of livestock, enhancing fisheries, and that helped boosting the quantity of production, and tap into national and international markets. So Vietnam has become a leading power in global markets on rice, obviously, but also on pepper, on cashew nut, on rubber, on many other crops. The disadvantage was it was very much based on exploitation of natural resources, water, soil. That is a model that cannot continue forever.
Being dependent on the natural resources, Vietnamese agriculture sector is heavily affected by climate change, which is currently a global phenomenon. So what are the measures implemented by Vietnamese farmers?
The first measure is that farmers understand what climate change is. But not only this, farmers need to be more market-oriented. Farmers are very vulnerable to natural disasters, very vulnerable to weather changes overall. You can help them in producing crops that are climate smart, climate resistant or resilient. Like in the Mekong Delta, we're moving away slowly from rice, because rice cannot tolerate the increasing salinization. So we have to look into more resilient, saline resilient crops. Coconut, vegetables, certain vegetables, moving more into on-land aquaculture, fisheries, shrimp production, certain things you can do. You need also do physical protection. Water management is very important, so that saline water does not come in and is being kept out.
Salinization is one of the biggest effects caused by climate change in the Mekong Delta. In many areas in the Delta, saline water penetrated by more than 90 kilometers. In Bến Tre province alone, the area of salinization reached nearly 50%. Thanks to the IFAD funded project for adaptation to climate change in the Mekong Delta, or AMD, Lê Thị Cúc in An Hiệp commune pioneered in raising sea ducks to adapt to climate change. Thanks to this model, she earned a profit of $3,450 last year.
Chất của nó là nó chịu hạn, nó chịu mặn, nó chịu phèn. Khi 1 tháng 20 ngày là con vịt trống gọi là nó cũng đạt là 3,1 kg, 3,2 kg rồi. Là cái con vịt mái nó cũng đạt là 2,8 kg rồi. Nhưng đặc biệt nó cái là một con là nó đẻ trứng 1 năm phải bình quân là 250 trứng. Và vịt này là nó không có mỡ, nó thịt không, nấu cái thịt cái chất lượng ăn rất là ngon. Giá vịt biển thì thay vịt kia 35, vịt biển phải nằm giá 40.
Thanks to participating in AMD, households that raise sea ducks are supported with breeds, a part of feed and veterinary.
Dù nhờ cái dự án AMB này là cuộc sống thím là cũng thay đổi từng ngày. Giờ cuộc sống đúng ra mở mắt ra thím Tám cũng kiếm được 100 mấy 200. Thì thím Tám lấy cái tiền đó thím Tám mua cho cháu đi học hoặc là mua đồ ăn sinh hoạt hàng ngày. Với hai nữa là dân thất nghiệp lao động ở đây nè, cũng nhờ dự án mà mở cái công ty ở Tân An á, nên thành thử là tạo cái lao động cho xã Hiệp của nhiều dữ lắm.
2017 thì chúng tôi có khoảng 26%, hơn 6% hộ nghèo. Năm nay là với cái sự tác động của dự án, một phần dự án AMD và các cái dự án khác thì năm nay hộ nghèo của xã Hiệp nó giảm còn khoảng hơn 21%.
The overall target of the project is to help over 60% of the poor households in the locality escape poverty. The project implemented 15 climate change adaptation models, in which 3 models were assessed and replicated, including raising sea ducks. Meanwhile, a project that helps farmers in thriving province adapt to climate change, control the salinization of water, employed automatic water pumping machines controlled on mobile devices. The tech is expected to reduce 30% to 40% production expense and 60% of greenhouse gases in agricultural production.
Trong cái chiến lược nhân rộng của dự án thì hiện nay đã được Ủy ban nhân dân tỉnh là phê duyệt đó, thì dự án sẽ hỗ trợ đối với những cái địa phương khác muốn làm chuyển đổi mô hình này thì dự án sẽ hỗ trợ 100% giống và 30% là phân bón để cho bà con chuyển đổi theo cái mô hình này. Vì cái mô hình này hiện nay là cái mô hình rất là hiệu quả và hiện nay là cái sản lượng, cái năng suất, cái sản lượng và cái giá đầu ra của sản phẩm tương đối là ổn định. Do đó là hầu như là tới đây thì dự án sẽ tiếp tục hội thảo để nhân rộng cái mô hình này ra.
The project was implemented in 2013 in 30 communes of 7 districts, namely Trà Cú, Cầu Ngang, Châu Thành, Cầu Kè, Tiểu Cần, Duyên Hải, Tràng Long. Total investment is over $22 million with the aim of giving livelihood to poor rural households. Thanks to this, they improved their capacity to adapt to climate change in production.
So you have just mentioned the technical solutions and their role in the agriculture sector. And how can we have more and more farmers access to those solutions?
That is exactly the key word, finance. Many smallholder farmers in Vietnam, 50% of Vietnam farmers at least are very smallholders, and they have difficulties to access finance. They access government-supported financing schemes, but these are not viable and sustainable. They don't reach out to every farmer. They need to increase their financial capacity, literacy we call that, in understanding I take a loan or I take money, and how do I convert that into a productive, commercially oriented enterprise. So my farm moves away from just production towards a better understanding of markets. And then financial system work, and then local banks have trust in small farmers in providing them with financial support. The next step is, and that is what we're doing in many IFAD projects, as you referred to in the introduction, we link farmers with enterprises. We call that the 4P model: public, private, people, partnership.
Lục Văn Thang's family used to be a near-poor household in Giáo Hiệu Ward, Pak Nạm District, Bắc Cạn Province. He joined the ginger production link 3 years ago. Since joining Link, his family has escaped poverty and have a stable income.
Trước kia còn nghèo, bây giờ hỗ trợ trồng gừng. 2 năm nay cũng bình thường, ổn định tí rồi. Được đi tập huấn, hỗ trợ phân với gừng cho không. Năm nay được khoảng bán hết khoảng 4 tấn, thu nhập khoảng 30 triệu.
Creating Ginger Production Link is the project for agricultural development in the Pro-Poor Partnerships for Agroforestry Development Project, a project of IFAD. However, these projects don't provide direct support to farmers, but through cooperation with enterprise. Based on their demand, enterprises will work with farmers, provide them with technical support and guarantee to buy farmers' products.
Trước đây thì người dân trồng nhỏ lẻ, người dân chủ động người ta đi lấy giống về nhưng mà rất là nhỏ lẻ thôi. Nhưng mà sau đó thì dự án vào phối hợp với Ủy ban xã để triển khai thì với cái lượng giống đảm bảo, nguồn giống đảm bảo và có đầu ra ổn định. 2018 thì bắt đầu là mở rộng diện tích trên toàn bộ các thôn ở 8 trên 8 thôn trong xã. Sau 2018 thì rất nhiều hộ gia đình, từ hộ nghèo là 125 hộ nghèo thì hiện tại đã giảm xuống chỉ còn 75 hộ nghèo thôi.
Not only farmers but also enterprises receive support from the projects.
Trước đây là chúng tôi là một cái hộ kinh doanh thôi, kinh doanh cá thể. Thế nhưng mà từ khi có dự án 3PAD tới tỉnh Bắc Cạn thì chúng tôi tiếp cận cái nguồn vốn của dự án 3PAD, đó là giúp chúng tôi xây dựng được nhà xưởng, mua sắm được một số thiết bị phương tiện ô tô, rồi là xe nâng, rồi là hệ thống sấy. Dự án cũng có tổ chức cho doanh nghiệp đi học các cái khóa đào tạo ngắn ngày, đó là khóa sơ cấp quản trị kinh doanh, giúp chúng tôi có một cơ sở để có cơ sở chúng tôi đủ lớn, đủ mạnh để có như là bao tiêu toàn bộ sản phẩm của cây gừng.
Tôi cho rằng là cái liên kết ở trong cái khâu chuỗi giá trị gừng này là có hiệu quả. Hiệu quả thứ nhất là người dân, người ta tiếp cận được với cái sản xuất hàng hóa, người ta có được khoa học kỹ thuật, người ta có được cái cam kết giữa cái sản phẩm với doanh nghiệp. Cái thứ hai nữa là vùng, cái hiệu quả là doanh nghiệp có được cái vùng nhiên liệu ổn định, và doanh nghiệp có được cái chất lượng sản phẩm do doanh nghiệp đào tạo và thu mua lại nó đồng đều để đáp ứng được với cái yêu cầu thị trường. Như vậy có thể nói là cái này là rất hiệu quả. Người dân cũng có lợi mà doanh nghiệp có lợi.
After more than 2 years of implementation, the enterprise has built a ginger growing area of over 70 hectares with 615 ginger farmers who earn about $600 a year from ginger production. Annual ginger consumption of enterprises also increased from 1,600 to 3,000 tons.
So you just mentioned the 4P model in which the public and private sectors being the stakeholders there. So can you elaborate more on that model and what does that mean for farming households?
Farmers come together in a group, in a common interest group, who have a common business plan. Let's say they want to produce pork and sell pork, so they need inputs, buying the piglets, buying veterinary services, buying feed. An enterprise is interested in buying those porks and producing certain dishes or sausages and other things that they can sell to the supermarket, but they need maybe investments in their slaughterhouse. So the project, the IFAD funded project, can help them to upgrade the technology and at the same time asking them to source from the farmer groups that we have supported. And in this way, small and poor farmers are actually connected to the enterprise.
Many farmers still find it hard to deliver their products to the market. And what can be done to support the farmers in delivering their products to the consumption markets?
I think the biggest role in terms of marketing agriculture product is for the private sector. The private sector looks for producers that can provide products at very good quality, that can go straight to urban markets, that satisfy the food safety concerns, demands of urban consumers. And I think this is the answer for those people, having a locally branded product. The identification and branding of specific products, that can be fruits, is another good example. It's wonderful oranges coming from Hazang, for example.
The Commodity-Oriented Poverty Reduction or CPRP program in Hazang province was supported by the International Fund for Agricultural Development or IFAD. The program has implemented many models to help farmers develop agricultural products and commodities. After 3 years from 2015, CPRP built up capacity for farmers in developing consumer markets.
Hiện nay tỷ lệ giảm nghèo năm 2017 so với 2015 là giảm 13,9, xấp xỉ 14%. Tốc độ giảm nghèo là trung bình mỗi năm là giảm khoảng 7%. Thì tốc độ này so với, tức là tính trên địa bàn của 30 xã thực hiện chương trình.
In Tân Commune, ethnic people account for 98.8%. In 2017, there were 496 households, in which 40.52% were poor households and 25.6% were near poor households. Nguyễn Đức Kim, owner of Kim Ching Tea Processing Company, or Shan Snow Tea brand, has 20 years of experience in producing tea and built the brand of Shan Snow Tea. The brand brought the tea of Tân Lập to markets in and outside the province.
Chương trình vừa rồi đã tài trợ cho chúng tôi là 435 triệu. Thế cho nên chúng tôi sẽ đã bỏ hết những cái nhà xưởng máy móc cũ đi và đầu tư thêm một số cái máy móc mới. Cũng rất may là có chương trình hỗ trợ, và vậy mà chúng tôi đã nâng cấp được cái thứ nhất là về nhà xưởng này, rồi quy mô nó lớn hơn, cái máy móc này nó đáp ứng được cái yêu cầu để làm những cái chè càng ngày càng tốt hơn nữa.
Realizing the potential for development in the locality, the Commons Authority proposed Kim a public-private cooperation model. Total investment is over $43,000, to which CPRP contributed 43.2% and Kim contributed 56.8%.
Nhưng bây giờ kết nối được với các tổ sở thích với bà con nông dân ấy, thì lợi nhuận của họ với của mình là gắn kết với nhau. Ví dụ chúng tôi sản phẩm của chúng tôi bây giờ nó là, ví dụ như cái đầu ra của nó cao hơn ngày xưa tầm 2-3 lần.
Kim's company was able to buy fresh tea leaves at the price of 65 cents to $1.3 per kilogram to serve the production of special green tea category 1 and 2. Since the upgrade of facilities, the company added red ginseng tea to their products. This is a high-class product with a price of $43 per kilogram. The productivity of the company is about 1 ton per day, which doubles the productivity before the CPRP project. The company signed contracts with a Vietgap tea production team of 17 households and a group of tea growers in the commune.
Over the past few years, we have seen so many Vietnamese agro-produce entering street markets like the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and the EU. So what should farmers do to satisfy those markets?
There are certain standards, global standards, that need to be achieved, but you have also in Vietnam, Vietgap, for example, good agriculture practices. Farmers need to know, need to understand, for example, how much agriculture, agrochemicals like pesticides can be sprayed on crops and when and how. And they need to understand that they must not overuse those because there will be residues, and consumers are more and more aware of residues and the impact on health. Also, packaging, processing and packaging becomes very important. Another aspect is the recognition and the tracing back to the producers.
And could you elaborate more on the future partnership between IFAD and also the Vietnamese government and farmers in the years to come?
25 years now, we have invested about 400 million US dollars in Vietnam alone. I think our financial contribution comes probably slowly to an end. It will be declining over the next coming years. What I hope and what I'm offering to our partners here in Vietnam, to the government, is a true partnership based on knowledge, experience, with investments for smallholder agriculture and farmers that have not yet managed to enter into mainstream economic development. But I think actually in 25 years you will not see IFAD anymore. Vietnam will be prospering at very high levels and is already a star model and will be even more a star model globally in terms of rural development and overall development.
Thank you very much for sharing the information, also being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The government of Vietnam and IFAD have identified the target of the country's Strategic Opportunities Programs, or COSOPs, for Vietnam in 2019 to 2025 as smallholders and agri-SMEs is underserved areas with a concentration of ethnic people. In the coming time, IFAD will support the poor and vulnerable groups in the most remote and difficult areas, at the same time as promoting innovative development approaches. Additionally, the Vietnamese government and IFAD seek to develop partnerships with the other international organizations, bilateral development donors, international and local non-governmental organizations, and in particular, the private sectors for realization of their strategic objectives. The partnership between Vietnam and IFAD is expected to help more farmers in Vietnam escape poverty and make a sustainable livelihood. And that also wraps up this edition of BizLine. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see us more on our next programs, please log on to vtv4.vtv.vn or our YouTube channel at VTV4Go. And we'll be back next week with more news, so see you then. Goodbye.